months later, I was back at camp again, here at Buren Youth Camp. I had broken my silence, and suddenly, all the memories started to haunt me. I was having nightmares and flashbacks of all these reoccurring thoughts that were going on inside of me. What happened to me, just continuing to torture me. And I felt camp would be that escape. But even though I was going back to that fun, exciting place in my life, I still was carrying with me the memories that followed. And about my second or third night there, I had been up in my cabin, and my camp counselor here noticed something was going on. She constantly saw me sitting up at night when we're all supposed to be going to bed, and just staring out the window, or waking up in the middle of the night, just having nightmares. So about my second night here, she pulled me outside after everyone had gotten in their cabins, and sat down and goes, "Is everything all right? Something doesn't seem right with you." And I was afraid to tell her because I was so ashamed of what happened to me. And I sat there hesitating. Do I tell her? Do I not tell her? What if I freak her out? How is she going to react? And this is where I hope you're really listening. Because you may at some point, and I sure hope you don't, but you may at some point as a camp counselor come across a child, adolescent that tells you this happened to them and share this. And I hope you respond the same exact way that my camp counselor did in 1998, because she handled it like she had been trained in it. And most people, like I said, have not been discussed sexual abuse. So she handled it very well. And after I told her what had happened to me and how this had just divided my entire family, she sat there and reminded me that I was safe, that I was in a safe place, and my cousin could never hurt me again, and talked me through everything. And she ended up allowing the rest of my week at camp being one of the most memorable weeks. I continued to sleep through the rest of the night, and she didn't make me feel ashamed of what had happened to myself. I'm going to share with you what I wrote when I came back from camp, after what could have been a very rough week turning into a great one. August 1998. I had an awesome time at camp. I stayed in the cabin and had made a bunch of new friends. I got up every morning and did polar bear. Polar bear is where you get up before 7 and walk down to the beach and jump in the water. It is a big wake-up call. The food is excellent here. They make the best French toast. During the day, my cabin has a schedule, and every day is different. Some days we go canoeing, to the art room, archery, swimming, dodgeball, and we had a dance one night. Every day we have an hour of time to ourselves in our cabins, where we must stay. People sleep, write letters home, read, or quietly talk to friends. After dinner at night, everyone joins hands and we walk to the campfire together. At the campfire, we sing songs. My favorite song is Angels Watching Over Me. From the campfire, we get ready for bed and lights are out at 10. Then the party begins. We all get in trouble because we were supposed to go to bed instead of giggling and walking around. You'll hear people outside the cabin row shouting out different cabin numbers and telling them to go to bed. On the last day of camp, I cried. I made so many new friends and didn't want to say goodbye. I got the addresses and promised to write them all. Going to camp was the best experience all summer. And it always was, coming to camp, the same camp here that my mom went to. My sisters and I went, and it always had been the best experience of all. And as I sit here and tell you about my experience, I truly hope that none of you have to cross paths with another camper that has experienced this. But listening to me, I hope that if you do ever experience someone crossing paths with you and sharing this with you, you don't silence them, you don't freak out, but instead, you give them an ear to listen and you comfort them. Because that's the best thing you can do to someone that has experienced such horror. They've been told over and over again, no one will believe them, and so often, 80 to 90% of the time, it's someone you love and trust. Like I said earlier, that stranger danger you're warned about. So often, it is that person you know, a family member, a close family friend, a neighbor. But it's someone parents trust with their kids that do this. As time went on in my life, I went to camp one more year. And it was in 1999, 10 years ago, was the last time I was here until today. And in 1999, I was still experiencing the nightmares, the flashbacks, but I was more comfortable with what happened to me been in my cabin one afternoon and about to go swimming, and I shared with a new friend of mine that I had also experienced this, what I had gone through and how it affected my life. And she turned to me and looked at me, and I thought I kind of startled her, scared her, and she looked at me with this relief. I said, "What?" And she said, "The same thing happened to me, and I've never known anyone else that's gone through this. I thought I was the only one. There's no one I've ever been able to turn to and talk to about this." And the truth is, I recently heard from her, and she told me, by sharing my experience with her that day in our cabin, that I opened a whole new door again in her life, little did I know, and allowed her to begin to heal, realize she wasn't alone, and also know as she described to me, the nightmares she was having ended because she didn't feel so alone anymore. Because like I said, we aren't educated about this. We don't talk about it. It's the one topic in our society. You'll hear about cancer. You'll hear about juvenile diabetes. You hear about, say no to drugs and DARE interventions and stuff, but you don't hear about sexual abuse. And so as I got into high school, there was still a lot of stuff I didn't want to discuss, and my high school years were very rough for me. I attempted suicide. I went through self-injury. I spent time in a hospital. My high school years were extremely rough because this continued to haunt me, because I never got the closure I wanted and the apology I was looking for. When I was 18, I decided, senior year of high school, or junior year, to confront my teenage cousin. I did it in a letter. I wanted him to know how much he hurt me. I wanted him to know what I lived with his actions, and how I felt he had gotten off so easily. A 5-page letter. I never expected a response, but I ended up getting one. And for 7 months, my cousin and I corresponded back and forth in letters, trying to get answers, trying to get closure. I started off holding on to so much anger and hatred. And 7 months later, may surprise many of you, I was able to let go of the anger and hatred towards this man that used to lock me in bedrooms and closets and bedrooms, you name it, who took an entire extended family from me, and I forgave him. And that has been the greatest gift in my life that I have done, because it has opened up a whole new door in my life, allowed me to find my voice and let go of so much anger and hatred and find the peace I had longed for. So many people are so ashamed to talk about this, and I can tell you right now, I may be standing here talking about this with you, and I know there's people sitting in here that have walked the same path I've walked. They say 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before their 18th birthday. But we aren't educated on it. That's why I decided to take that little pink diary and the many other diaries I had throughout my childhood and turn it into what is now called Stolen Innocence. And I took all the journal entries, word for word, and began this whole journey from age 10 up to my senior year of high school, sharing my journey of finding my voice and deciding, after carrying so much shame and feeling so dirty about what happened to me, and realizing I didn't do this to myself. I didn't put myself in this position. I can spend the rest of my life being miserable, allowing my cousin to rob another day of my life. But I decided to turn it around and turn it into something positive. And I live with this belief that everything happens in our life for a reason. And I found my reason for the things that have happened in my life by standing up and speaking out about them. Educating people, flying across the country, speaking to students, speaking at national conferences, many community events, and putting a face and voice on this so other people will step forward, become educated, and find their own voice.